Thank you so much, everybody.
Cultural intelligence. What do people really say and think and portray in social media? Gives an absolute understanding of people's true feelings, the cultural intelligence, and no one better to present to us the cultural intelligence of what Latinos feel about their labels, Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, than Lily Gilvaleta. In our first Hispanic Leadership Summit, we started voting and asking people whether you cared. The results that we got from 2018 is that people really don't care a lot about labels, but there's more to that. And Lily will present to us the results of what people are really truly saying in her cultural intelligence research. Lily, welcome.
Hi, everyone. I am Lily Gilvaleta, CEO and co-founder of the cultural intelligence company CM Plus and the market research tech Culture Intel. And I am so excited to be joining you today as part of the Hispanic Leadership Summit to actually talk about a topic that many of you may be wondering about. It is the use of labels, or the right label to identify our very rich community. We have heard Hispanic, we have heard Latino and Latina, but what about Latinx?
Have you heard of the term Latinx?
Latinx? No, that's my first time hearing about that.
Latinx. I don't know. Is it like Malcolm X?
Yeah, tal que el diablo. Yo, you know what I think? They think that we Latinx. Yeah, I think we are. I think that's what it is. You sure? How you know? This is what they're calling us. I'm pretty sure they keep looking at us when they say it. Well, who is us? Who are they? Who are we?
Dean Asti and Sasha Merci are Latinx stars. Stars. Write that down. Put a star next to it. How do we capture the Latinx essence?
But which one is the right term to use? Or is there such a thing as the right term? You know, the beauty of the diversity within our own community kind of sits at the center of this big question. And we are going to let the numbers do the talking. And that's why I'm coming to you today with some of the baseline understanding that we have from different academics and also stuff that Pew Research has published. But what I'm excited to share with you is brand new data that is based on the analysis of over 760,000 digital discussions that we mined and analyzed using our tech Culture Intel. The way that works is it takes all the open digital discussions that are happening everywhere, not just in social media, so that we can look at the patterns in the way people speak organically when they talk to each other without having to ask them a question. And yes, I will share those findings with you. You will receive a one-pager that summarizes some of these findings of the use of labels and terms so that we can finally decide whether to Latinx or not. Well, let's just go into the definition of the terms as we know them today. So starting with the term Hispanic, it actually roots back to an affiliation or an affinity to being Hispanos, or tied to the Spanish colonization. Those of us from countries that have Spanish as the primary language spoken. Now, the need for a label of such kind here in the United States became really important in the 70s because as part of the US Census, it was recognized that we needed to be able to identify those of Hispanic descent in the United States. And then the term started being used, but it typically, as I said, encompasses those countries that speak Spanish and have a connection to the Spanish or Monarquía Hispana. Later on, the term Latino came to be. Latino or Latina, following the gendered nature of our language, allows you to identify as such. And it's a broader term that actually is inclusive of all countries in Latin America, not just those that speak Spanish, because it actually includes countries like Brazil as Latinos under that label and designation. But of course, because of its gendered nature, which typically defaults to calling the group Latino or Latinos, it raised the next layer of questioning about gender. Is Latino excluding women? Is Latino not being inclusive of today's quest for inclusivity in nouns and terms so that we actually have a non-binary descriptor of the community? And then Latinx came to be. It is quite unclear where it exactly started or who was the first to use it. I mean, there's different hypotheses out there. Was it as part of an LGBTQ movement that was Xing the O on the Latin O label, and then it started picking up? But clearly, you're probably hearing it or debating it in your corporate hallways, in your, meetings, etc. Well, Latinx sounds very progressive and it's very fluid as it relates to the gender, but our language happens to be gendered. So is there such a thing as a perfect term or not? Each of them have their nuances, as I just described. And this is where the data can do the talking for us. You have probably read it already. Pew Research was the first to put out some information and data that possibly shocked you or surprised you the first time it was published. And it's the fact that barely 3% of the over 60 million Hispanics that live in our country use the term Latinx. And in fact, 23% of Hispanics in the US don't even know what the term is or have ever heard it. So here we are defaulting to a new label that is very likely that the everyday people, communities, families, and those that we want to reach, embrace, empower, are not even using. So are we talking to ourselves as corporate leaders? Don't let opinion sway you. Let's see what the data reveals. And I told you, we did this very powerful study using Culture Intel that scraped open digital discussions available everywhere, not just in social media, everywhere where people have been engaging for the last 12 months as it relates to the labels to use or not, what their sentiment is, and how they feel towards it. Well, here's some of those findings, which you may find quite insightful and maybe even surprising for some. Well, let's begin with the comparison of Hispanic versus Latino versus Latinx. Of those three terms, the one that secures the highest positive sentiment amongst all discussions that we analyzed was the term Latino or Latina. 81% of the discussions related to that term were positive, while for Latinx, 79% were negative. So clearly, it seems that Latino and Latina is that broader term that people gravitate to. In fact, some of the verbatims or quotes that were part of these hundreds of thousands of digital discussions analyzed say, I consider myself a pretty inclusive person, and Latino and Latina is just proper Spanish, period. So as you can see, it honors the gender nature of our language to begin with. Now, could it be that by generations, this sentiment profile changes? Well, somewhat, but here's what the data reveals. No surprise here, boomers, the older Hispanic or Latino generations of our community, are very, very negative towards the terms Latinx. In fact, 93% are negative. That little 7% that is left over is neutral. I guess they don't know enough. And there is a zero positive sentiment towards the term altogether amongst the older generations. But then when we look at millennials and Gen Xers, surprisingly, the negative sentiment towards Latinx is very loud and present. 83% of millennials are negative towards the term Latinx, and 71% of Gen Zs are negative towards the term Latinx. So there you have it. This is what the data reveals. And I know there's not a perfect term, but ultimately, as America's biggest diverse segment of the population, driving more than 50% of the growth and quickly becoming the majority in very prominent markets and places Like in the state of Texas, when we're hitting that pivotal point where the majority of the population is Hispanic, we gotta do our homework and not let the fad or the fancy terms get you all confused about the role and priority that we play in society. In fact, I'm gonna dare you with this. If you are spending more time debating what label to use as it relates to our community, and instead you're not spending the same amount of time to debate how much money, resources, budget, and priority you ought to put towards our community, you may be putting your energy in the wrong place. Because no term is perfect. We can follow what the data guides us to follow. Clearly, Latino, Latina seems to be a preferred term. Hispanic follows, and Latinx continues to be in that single digit of adoption and embracing by the communities that we serve. Inclusivity matters. Yes, terms matter. However, don't let that distract you from what matters most, which in this case is continuing to prioritize and recognize the value and the power that we bring as one big unit, as one society and community that wants to contribute to this great nation so we can continue to stay competitive, grow, drive innovation, business creation, entrepreneurship, and everything that we have to offer as Hispanics, Latino, Latinas, or Latinx, whatever is the right term for you. But now you know what the data says, and hopefully you've learned something new today. And thank you so much. We are all human, and the Hispanic Leadership Summit for opening this great space so we can continue to learn and connect as a community. Thank you.
Our diversity is rich, it's wonderful. But honestly, it also makes it very complex to reach us all and to engage with us with an authentic voice. In partnership with Procter & Gamble and Alma, the Hispanic Star created a campaign identifying one of the core passion issues that unite all Latinos. Yes, our desire to progress. And that key insight can help actually companies to know how to support us, how to elevate us, and how to be with us and engage with us authentically, genuinely. I am delighted to share with you this incredible session with masterminds to share the insights of the Pro campaign that we created with Procter & Gamble, Alma, and the Hispanic Star.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jerónimo Escudero. I work in P&G. I'm a senior brand director in our brand function. And I'm here to talk to you today about the journey of Powering Progress. This has been a joint effort with the Superstar team. And joining me today, we have some of our members.
Hello, my name is Sarah Avila Murphy. I am the Senior Director for Analytics and Insights at P&G.
Mark?
Hello, I'm Luis Miguel Mesiano. I'm the founder, creative chairman, and CEO of Alma.
Hi, everybody. Mark Villegas, Senior Brand Director, Brand Building Integrated Communications at P&G.
So first thing, before we start the conversation, we wanted to set up how we got into this project in the first place. It all started about a year and a half ago when Luis Miguel Mesiano and members of the Hispanic Star came to us with an opportunity to help drive visibility to the urgent need to provide help to Latinos, to Latino families that were struggling with COVID. We immediately realized this was a big need and something that was particularly important for P&G to take a stand on and drive work going forward. So we commissioned the project, and 2 weeks later, we were live with a beautiful manifesto called Estamos Unidos that brought a point of view of unity as a way to generate impact or resources to help solve this urgent need. The campaign was executed and across multiple touch points, TV, digital, and complemented with local community support, where P&G was able to donate essential products, PPE, and importantly, raise funds to help provide this immediate relief for families. But we were not done there, yet we realized there was much work to be done. So we formed a team, you can call it a SWAT task force, to go and explore what really were the structural barriers getting in the way of Latino progress in America. And with that in mind, we started what is now Powering Progress. First question is going to go to Sarah. Sarah, I would love your perspective and point of view on something at P&G we hold dearly, which is consumer insights and consumer understanding. What work did we do to set the course for this beautiful campaign?
Thanks, Hero. Just so everyone knows, Hero gave me a call on a Friday afternoon and said, I have an amazing project for you to work on in addition to your day job. And we're going to go and change the lives of Hispanics around the country. And of course, I jumped all in. The first thing that we always do at P&G when we're trying to understand a deep human insight is we sit down and we really hypothesize and we call it know what we know. We understand the previous work that's been done, and we start to formulate an idea of what we think the true consumer tension is. And while it's good and bad, I'm a little embarrassed to say that we were pretty wrong at first. We thought that maybe the tension was different than what it turned out to be. And so we were falling a little bit flat. So we commissioned a great piece of work with our partners at Civis, who really helped us dive deep and really understand the core tensions around the country and how they varied based on different levels of acculturation. But there was one thing that was common across all different groups of Hispanics, and that was that they wanted to be seen first as American and very close second as driving American progress. All too often, Hispanics are produced in the media and in politics sometimes as people who are detracting. They're taking jobs, they're taking resources, but that's not actually what they're doing at all. They're the only group that's actually improving their economic and social status generation over generation. More businesses are created in America from Hispanic women than any other group. And so what we had to really understand was what is it that was missing in the narrative and how could P&G fill that gap? So we came up with the core insight that Hispanic progress was a pro for America. And that's really where it all stemmed from. Regardless of where they are in the country, regardless of their country of origin, this was the number one thing that Hispanics around America could resound around. And so that's where we came up with the core campaign and this beautiful story that we painted.
Thank you, Sarah. Mark, now I want to get your perspective on something that I found equally breakthrough in the development of this campaign, which is getting clear on the objective of the campaign and ultimately the brand promise, and how to position both with the magnitude and aspiration worthy of a P&G campaign.
Thanks, Hero. I got a similar call as Sarah from Hero to do this in addition to my day job, and obviously I think fits really well with my own personal mission and goals to help this community, which I'm so passionate about. So jump at the opportunity. As we got the insights that really what brought Hispanics together was the shared desire to make progress towards their American dream. What we found was that as they make progress in the United States, the ability of the community to actually support Hispanics diminished. There weren't the resources and knowledge within the community to actually enable that progress and empower it in the way that we would hope for. And ultimately, what we determined was there was a big role for P&G to play in helping Hispanics progress at various levels, whether it's through jobs, education, and health. And really what we needed to then do was talk about not only why this is a force for good for Hispanics, but also go back to our brands and say why this is a force for growth for their business. And really the business case that we started to build was that Hispanics are going to be the driving force for the growth of our brands over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And that by helping to empower Hispanic communities to progress, and by building and getting more Hispanics into closer to their American dream, we're actually going to be able to build our brands in a bigger way. And so what we started to formulate was this idea that, as Sarah was saying, Hispanic progress is a pro for America, and that we are going to start working towards empowering Hispanic communities to have better jobs, better education, and better health. And through that, we're actually going to be able to build the equity and share of our brands with this important community.
Thank you, Mark. So, Luismi, with all this foundational work and this clarity of thinking, you got the brief in your hands. Tell us what really happened inside Alma.
Thank you, Jero. First of all, let me say that it's been an honor, a privilege, and a real joy to work with you guys, and also with Mark Pritchard's leadership. By the way, congratulations on the recognition. You mentioned Estamos Unidos. I think it all started back then. As you might recall, we started as Círculo Creativo. I was the one that came up with this idea of Estamos Unidos de América. And since we had to be on air in a very short period of time, we took it on as Alma. And in this case, I didn't get the Friday call, but we had the luxury of spending more time. And to me, it started with getting the right team together. And I knew that the Gaves, Gabriel Ferrer and Gabriel Reyes, would really bring a different perspective. They're both, young Hispanics that have made a difference, not only at Alma, but in the world, in their own world. And I figured that working together with them and working with Meg Valls, who led the account team, we would find a way to communicate such a simple notion, but at the same time, such a big undertaking. And we started by talking about the importance of recognizing and helping accelerate the progress Hispanics are making in America to help drive the growth and prosperity for all. And we know that Hispanics are unwaveringly focused on progress towards the dream of a better life in America. You can say that it's our own version of the American dream. And we're injecting energy to the long and vibrant American experiment. But this is, not a zero-sum game. As Sarah mentioned, some people see our gain as their loss. And we needed to find a way to communicate that, Hispanic progress is progress for America. And it's one of those instances in which the campaign idea, and I would say that this is more than just a campaign idea. I think we were able to create a platform. It was right in front of our noses. We kept looking at the word progress, and in our brainstorms, we realized that the concept was in the word progress. And that's how we came up with this idea of pro. And of course, we knew it was important to find the right tone and manner, talk to them in an American context, as Americans first, to Sarah's point, but without forgetting that they're very much Latinos at heart. And we had to find a tone that was optimistic, that showed progress and this idea of fulfillment of dreams. And, if you think about it, the pursuit of progress is what unites us as Hispanics in this country. But we needed to find a way, and we needed to celebrate Hispanic progress that showed that, we are making a difference. And I think we found a very interesting platform. It's a platform that celebrates all the positives of Hispanic progress and boldly calls for all to recognize that Hispanic success equals American success, that our pursuit of a better life betters the lives of everyone. and that Hispanic unity got us this far, but now united with P&G and with Hispanic Star, we can go even further than ever before. And we showed how Hispanics are putting the pro in progress with a powerful spoken word anthem using words that all begin with pro. And through the power of repetition and narration and the use of typography, the audience would be able to associate every Latino accomplishment as what it is, a pro. And if you bear with me, I think it will be great to show the video here.
Is Hispanic progress a pro for America? Some people still question it. They see our gain as their loss. But when I see mi gente, all I see are pros. I see protagonists pushing the country forward. The producers and protectors, the programmers and professors, the providers and proprietors, the self-promoters and thought-provokers. About the only thing I don't see are procrastinators. Because we're too proactive. So, is Hispanic progress a pro for America? Most definitely. That's why P&G is proud to join Hispanic Star to empower our communities through better jobs, better education, and better health. Because they see what we see, that our progress will always, always be a pro. Help us power progress at HispanicStar.org.
Wow, it's such a great spot. I still get emotional every time I see it. And Sarah, Mark, I would love to get your thoughts on what we found when we looked at the spot, even in its early stages, and we did some consumer testing. Any insights we got from that helped us shape the campaign further?
Yes. So, Hiro, I agree with you. I get chills every time I see it as well, watching this beautiful insight come to life in such an amazing way. At P&G, we're very data driven. And so we we actually held off on no amount of testing of this spot. It was that important to us. So we brought our best capabilities to bear. In some of the initial artificial intelligence learning, we actually saw that this copy resonated incredibly well among ethnic groups of various forms, as well as with Caucasian Americans. And as we dug deeper, what they talked about, every one of them, was that this level of progress is something that every person wanted to aspire to. So how beautiful that this copy is evoking not only Hispanic progress as a pro for America, but if Hispanics can do it, I can too. And I think that's a big reason why this copy is scoring so highly. Not to mention that we spent a lot of time thinking about the tonality of it. Mark, I'm sure you have some comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tonality of the film really strikes the right balance of being positive, but also at the same time addressing head-on some of the stereotypes and beliefs that Hispanics face. So while there is some negative sentiment in it, which I think we needed to bring to life, I think the net feeling that you're left with is one of hopefulness and optimism. And I think at the end of the day, one of the reasons why you have that feeling is because it's easy to make a point of view or put an opinion out there. There's lots of brands doing that, and these more purpose-driven ads, a lot of times there's not really a lot of meat behind them. What is the brand actually doing to make the situation better? And I think one of the beautiful things that Luis, me, and the team were able to accomplish is putting forth the point of view that Hispanics are givers and not takers, and all the pros that Hispanic progress has on the United States, but then also really integrate in a really meaningful way what P&G in partnership with Hispanic Star is doing to push the progress of Hispanics even further, and how we're empowering communities through better jobs, better education, and better health. And I think that sense of this isn't just another opinion, but these folks are actually acting upon it and trying to make the situation better, I think also has contributed significantly to the positive results that we're seeing.
Thank you, team. We could not be happier with the strengths of the film, and our plan is to continue leveraging it for years to come to set the stage of our efforts in our work. With that said, this is not just a campaign idea with a beautiful manifesto. It's almost, and we see it this way, an activation platform, something that will extend and guide P&G's efforts over time. And by doing so, we are hoping it helps strengthen the alliance with Hispanic Star and other partners. A way to do so is by helping scale up what we are calling this force for good as a force for growth impact model. It's a model where in the foundation, we're guided by two elements. In one, the Sustainable Development Goals that have been shared by the past Hispanic Star Leadership Summit and their partners. And in the other side, the P&G brands or any other brand or call it private sector investor equality and inclusion priorities. With those two things clear, finding the intersection is what really unlocks the support, the engagement, and the activity system that we envision. As per the activity system, there's two distinct elements. There's an element that is prioritizing and focus on helping drive visibility to the message, helping really drive the point of view, and by doing so challenging the stereotypes and shifting the narrative towards all the positives that come from supporting Latinos. And it's an activation system that includes media, influencers, retail, and many other touch points as we grow. And on the other side, we have the activity system for impact, where we're able to integrate the energy from the private sector, from the non-for-profit organizations at the national, regional, and local level with local communities, and be able to, through that interaction, efficiently drive resources that move the needle at the local level. That is much easier said than done. So it requires building the pipes. It requires testing the pipes as you build them to make sure that they're properly in place and able to extend and expand as more members join the alliance and join the work. So ultimately, that's where we netted out the campaign, at least on our year one, a beautiful manifesto, a great activity system, in a set of programs that have been activated through this system, and that all are set up for long-term growth, impacting and helping drive the areas that we have prioritized on the sustainable development goals that are most in the way of Hispanic progress.
Hey, Jero, one thing I wanted to add, I think just to build on your point about the activity system, is a key enabler of all of this has been our partnership with the Hispanic Star team, because they are the boots on the ground that have been able to build out this activity system and bring together these local community organizations in a way that's just really doubled and tripled down the investment that we're making and helped it to have such a large impact. I think a bigger impact than we've ever been able to have before. And I think that the power of that strategic partnership with Hispanic Star has just been a huge enabler through everything we've done, starting with the insights work all the way through to the actual brand activations that we're starting to execute now. So just a shout out to the Hispanic Star team for all the great work that they're doing.
Well said, Mark. And also, from my side, it's been an absolute pleasure to be part of this team. We could not have asked for a better group. The skills, the passion, the understanding, and the commitment to helping Latinos in America is second to none. And I can't wait. I can only hope and expect some great things going forward that build from the strong foundation we set on year one. We're just getting started.
We all need heroes. Yes, role models matter to inspire us all to the possibility of what we can all be. That is why it's so important to put platforms to showcase those people that have made it to the top. That's why we create Hispanic Star books, so that we can learn from those stories. That's why we create Hispanic Star children's books, so that we can learn from the heroes and inspire others. And it is an absolute pleasure to welcome to Hispanic Leadership Summit, Poch Rodriguez, your leadership in baseball, your incredible post-career commitment to the community make you an incredible Hispanic star. And before introducing you to the audience, I would like to say thank you personally for the creativity, for the generosity that you gave us during Hispanic Heritage Month last year, of actually giving 20% of the revenue of Poch Pizza to donate over one weekend to the Hispanic Star Hub in Dallas. Thank you and welcome, Poch Rodriguez.
Hola a todos, les habla Iván Poch Rodríguez, Baseball Hall of Famer, y quiero darle las gracias a todos y también en especial a la Fundación We Are All Humans y a la Hispanic Star por hacerme parte de su familia. Me siento bien orgulloso de ser parte de nuestra familia, la familia de los latinos, y quiero excusarme que no puedo estar con ustedes esta noche tan bonita allá en New York City, pero ahí les mandaré un mensaje para todos ustedes allá. Pero aquí, desde mi casa, les deseo todo lo mejor. Como latino, como boricua, como puertorriqueño, amo a mi gente latina, los amo a todos ustedes y tenemos que seguir trabajando duro, fuerte y siempre positivo para seguir creciendo a nuestra comunidad. Que Dios los bendiga, que disfruten esta noche y saludos a todos. Latino 100%. Saludos.
Unity and community. I cannot emphasize enough how important are networks of support to allow for social mobility, upward mobility, particularly at the leadership level. I sound like a broken record, but Latinos, what unites us really is our desire to progress. But the higher we go, the lonelier it gets, and the more important it is that we open the door for each other, that we support each other, that we buy from each other. It's some self-interest. And not only creating those networks of support among Latinos, we have to bring allies on board, as we have repeatedly said in this Hispanic Leadership Summit. And that is why it's such an honor for me to introduce two incredible women, a Latina superpower and an ally superpower to this summit, to discuss how do we embrace our Latinidad with love, how do we actually make sure that we take role models with us and start creating those networks of support, champions, sponsors in our lives so that we can all grow together. Welcome, Shelly and Joanna.
Hey everyone, we are so excited to be part of the Hispanic Leadership Summit. And I have to say that there is nothing more powerful than being part of a girlfriend network. And, you know, we call it allies, but it is so much more powerful than being an ally. It is being part of a support system, being part of a pack, being part of a network where it's more than a support system. It is about having someone's back. It's about the you go girl. It's about lifting someone up. It's about knowing that no matter what, it's about a yes. It's about a hug. It's about this coziness and it's about love. And I have to say, it's about my girlfriend, Joanna. And it's also about my girlfriend, Claudia. And this is where true friendship grows. And I never thought that at the age of 60, I would be able to have girlfriends in my life that I would meet at this age, that I would love at hello. And Joanna, I am just so excited to be here today with you talking about what true allies are all about, and that's you. So let's just talk about it, and let's talk about how we met.
Yeah.
and where that all came from. So where did we meet? How did it happen? And how are we here today?
So, what started out as I had received an invitation to this really interesting room in Cannes Lion. It was probably my third time at the show and at the festival as a creative leader. But I received this magical invitation into something that I think we Latinas call comunidad, right? This community of incredible women. I remember stepping in to the Martinez, into the suite, and feeling such a powerful draw to everybody who was there, inclusive of you, but with this vision that if we build the right networks, we can rise together. We don't have to do it alone. And this was the first time in my entire career that I had ever experienced that kind of love, support, and focus on doing good for each other. And so what started out as I think a conversation in Cannes has become just one of my best and dearest friends and friendship circles that no matter what happens in my life, they are always there. No matter what happens, the ups and downs of careers, they are there. Even when we can't make it through a swim, they're there. And so with all of that, we've had these shared experiences. But I think what is so key to everything is that you've built a community, Shelley. When I think about the FQPAC and so much of what you have taught us through your action has been the importance of community rather than competition, the importance of being linked rather than ranked. And I don't know that many of us are taught that in our early careers. We're so busy climbing the ranks of corporations rather than focusing on the links, because it's the links that get us much further than the rank.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about comunidad. And you walked in that room, and were we all the same? I mean, do we all come from the same backgrounds? And here we are, and we're going to talk about all different people, but we came together, and we're now celebrating Hispanic community, Latinas. And I'm a white girl, you're Latina.
Yeah.
We are from different places, yet we talked about inclusivity, and we came together one community. And so what did that feel like? And why did we all unite? We talk about competition, yet now we are one massive community of over 50,000 women from 100 countries, and yet we are a cohesive group. So how did that happen? And why are we all supporting each other? And what is the power of allyship?
I think the first question that you asked was, what did I see when I walked in? And I saw a tapestry of incredible women, from African American to Afro Latinas to Latinas that, like myself, who, let's just be really clear, I walk through life with incredible privilege, Shelley, because of the color of my skin. And so you don't always assume that I'm a Latina. It isn't until you've heard my story that I'm that kid from San Antonio, Texas, that couldn't have dreamed of walking into the Martinez and being accepted, right, for my intelligence and for what I could bring to that community that you were building. And so when I look back at every experience that I've ever had in corporate life since being a part of the PAC, it has been one that has been both of support, but of celebration of where I come from, celebration of who I am, and actually consistently making me feel confident in my own skin. And I think that's at a time, and when we think back, because it's been 10 plus years. So at a time when I don't think that there was a ton of conversation going on about the importance of women in business, about what equality meant to companies' bottom lines. And then the second part of that is the intersectionality of what it meant to be a woman and be a Black woman, or be a Latinx woman. All of these, I'd say, labels, it's not that they're dropped, they're celebrated.
they're used as superpowers and strength within our community to build how we I think come together to achieve ultimately, equality within business, but also achieving equality at home, right, in our communities. Because I think that we both agree that business problems and our society's problems are inherently linked. They can't be decoupled. And so that person that you want to bring to work or to the office and fully be yourself, right, has to have the same components and mechanisms that I think that often you have built, and maybe sometimes we take for granted in this community.
I know, so true. Oh, I think let's talk about also the role that allies can play in supporting Latinas.
Absolutely. So let me start with, what does it mean to be an ally of a Latina? First and foremost is, just celebrating that we're here and we're at the table. I think first, really acknowledging it and not asking us to be anything else but ourselves. The other part of that is really looking at the areas of equity. And I think sometimes we think about equity in a couple of different ways, but one of the most important ways is actually the bottom line of what you pay Latinas. And so as we think about equality and not just being able to rise in the ranks, it's not enough to rise in the ranks if we don't have equity and skin in the game, because we will continue, it kind of equated, if you have a great title and a really bad paycheck, the two don't ever go together. They're actually incongruent. So it is truly about thinking about equity in both that not everybody starts from the same place. I think that's a really important insight as being an ally. Most Latinas are not starting from the same place. Some of us have the privilege of that. Many of us don't. And then the second part of that is, helping us find sponsors, right? Because allyship, it's not enough to be mentored. It's really important to be sponsored. And the sponsor is going to help you navigate, I think their career path, but there's also the part of equity. How much equity should you expect when you're taking on a corporate position? Let's say you're starting a partnership or a small business. What is the division of equity within your partnership or business? And really getting down to the nuts and bolts of giving Latinas the confidence that they need to make the same decisions equally that their male or their female white counterparts. And what I will say is that I have learned so much about allyship from you. One of the things that I have loved about whether it was owning my own business or being at IBM or now today at Amazon and also running Design by Us, I think one of the things that you have always offered me is candor, right? It is the candor of what are the barriers in front of us, and then what is it that we need to collectively do so that we are far more linked and not in competition with each other in trying to achieve some of these equality goals. And I think that's really been critical to both finding allies, but also helping me find sponsorships along the way in a way that has both progressed my career, but also, if we think about it, is when you're progressing a Latina's career, you're bringing the whole community with us. We travel in packs naturally. I always like to say we bring the pueblo with us so often we don't even realize it. And so much of when you lift a Latina, you're lifting up our community simultaneously.
Gosh, all I had to do was give you the microphone, girlfriend. It was just about visibility. And I think that that's truly what an ally also is just amplification. And, I just have to say, because you talked about swimming and, this was just the greatest story, when we were in Cannes and the pack went on, a boat in the sea, in the Mediterranean. And there we were out there in the sea and a bunch
off the coast of the Black Sands of Saint-Tropez, to be exact, but yes.
Saint-Tropez. We were all there and the sea got a little rough and, we were out swimming. And of course, we all jumped in the water and we were having a little rough time. And you were out there having a rough time. So of course, you were out there, little rough sea. So I came to help you out, and then I was having a rough time. So I was pulling you. Someone else came to pull me. Someone else came to pull the other person. Next thing you knew, when you talked about link, 50 of us were linked together, pulling each other because we were all going to save each other. And
that's right.
I think I just have this image when you talked about links.
Yeah.
We were 50 linked together, holding each other. And when you talked about the support system, when one woman rises, we all shine.
That's right.
And that to me is allyship. And, you know, it's just about giving each other, sharing the mic. And that is what it's all about. Sharing the mic, amplification, because we are all incredible. And then there comes Claudia Romo Edelman. Whoosh.
Yeah. A force to be reckoned with in the greatest way.
In the greatest way. Talk about visibility of Latinas. She shows up in Cannes and brings the Latina community one by one, showcasing all these incredible Latinas. And I remember this moment where she comes in and introduces the Latina community to the FQ community. And next thing you knew, we were merged and we were one. And from that day on, there you have it. No going back.
Absolutely not. And I think the diversity that she introduced to the pack, it was, I think it's bold. And so much of the work that she's doing, both at, We're All Human, but also I think one of the things that we're at such an interesting inflection point in our history that Claudia absolutely gets, right? That we as a community are really dealing with our identity, probably for the first time in a really candid way. What does it mean to be Latina, Latino, Latinx, right? Hispanic, any one of the categories of names that you prefer to identify yourself, right? How do you find that network to build your career and build a network that it has longevity and that is there to support you? And I think that's what I really, truly love about Claudia. Similar to meeting her at the girls' lounge and through TFQ, we recently had lunch together. It was like I had found a sister that I had long lost sister. And we were so focused in on the mission of raising the awareness of all the incredible Latinas that are in business today. I got to give a shout out really clear, because one of the conversations that we had was the importance of kind of taking a nod to the generation of Latinas that came before us. I am so incredibly fortunate that, I come from a dynamo of a Latina named Margot Peña. Margot grew a 40-year architecture and construction business in San Antonio, Texas. And that was what I got to see every day. I got to see this brilliantly creative woman who is now in her 70s. She's going to kill me for saying that loud.
Oh, Mom.
But Mom, love it. You're in your 70s and you look fabulous because you're Latina. And Latinos don't crack either. So one of the things that she taught me was not only to be a creator, right? And not only to build a business, which, I watched her build a primarily female business in a male-dominated industry, which was construction. And she built this business out of our garage while being a single mom to 2 kids. I was one of them. And built it from doing residential work to commercial work, then to building for the United States government and, things like bridges and buildings and military bases, you name it. So I had this amazing role model of both what it meant to be a woman in business and to bring other women around you. They were the designing women before the show came out. And then the next part was being able to see that there was a path to be creative and to intertwine that creativity in business together. And that's rare. And then at least I thought it was rare until I met Claudia, because what I think Claudia is doing is exposing the many Margot Peñas that are out there building our communities. Here's somebody who is, identifying whether they're, members of the SBA, being identified or, celebrated by our own presidents around the importance of small business and our Latinas. And let's just be really clear. We have this really amazing superpower, not just in corporations to navigate corporate structures, but I think Claudia has capitalized on something that's really important, which is around the importance of acknowledging all the small business owners that are all Latinas and how they are so diverse, whether they are coming to us in the trades or in food, or really reinventing the way that business is being done, because we're in this interesting time. And I think we find this, Shelley, in both understanding what it means to be in that sandwich generation. In the Latinx community, being in that sandwich generation not only means that you have to be this, phenomenal business person, but you also have to be a mother to your children and now a caregiver to your parents simultaneously. And I think there are many, I think there are many populations that are going through that. That's always been our way of life. So we've been in a perpetual sandwich generation from generation to generation. And so the importance of celebrating the women that we stand on their shoulders, my mother, Margot Pena, before her was Rose Pena, right? You go, okay, so I've gotten 3 generations of amazing women as visibility. What Claudia is doing is amplifying what those generations have done so that we can continue to build on their legacy, because they have a very rich legacy behind.
And we're so good at it because we've been doing it for so long.
Right.
This new generation is just getting good at it. So we got a lot of experience as Latinas in doing it for quite some time. I also have to say, just to wrap and to give some advice, because we got to close this gap once and for all. And I think Latinas have a leg up. So they got the experience. They've been doing it for a long time. And as I always say, I hire for passion. I train for skill. Latinas got the passion. So once again, they got the leg up. And so hire for passion, train for skill.
Absolutely. In Spanish, Shelley, we call it ganas, right? The desire to succeed. It's the ganas to be something better than where we came from. And so it's using that ganas to succeed is so critical. And celebrating ganas, right? Because ganas is partly ambition. We shouldn't be ashamed of our ambition. We should celebrate it.
Own it.
Yeah.
Know your value, know your worth, ask for it. Why are we paid 54 cents on the dollar? That is ridiculous. No more. Ask for it. Know your value, know your worth, hire for passion, train for skill. Absolutely close the gaps. We need to close the gaps once and for all. And so these are the very important things. I also say hire in threes at every level so that you are not the one and only, because that's when we fall out. So these are really important things. And so for everybody, we are so excited to be here together with you. Joanna, I love you so much.
I love you, Shelley.
Claudia, you know how much te amo. We love you.
Te amo, Claudia.
Thank you, everyone.
Y a todos mis amigas y mis amigos y mis amigues, gracias para todo.
Gracias. Say it again, Joanna.
Sure. Para mis amigas y mis amigos y mis amigues, gracias para todo.
I agree. Okay, thank you so much. I'm Shelley Zalis, CEO of the Female Quotient.
And I'm Joanna Pena Bickley, the head of research and design for Alexa devices at Amazon and the CEO of designedbyus.org.
Throughout this afternoon, we've been talking about how to make inclusion more inclusive, as Shelley mentioned. But let's talk about the key barriers that are in front of the advancement of the Latino community, particularly Latinas. Yes, Latinas, this incredible group that is the minority within the minority, the gap between the gap, and that is paid the least of the country, 57 cents of the dollar. And according to a survey from Monica Ramirez, that number might be even lower because a lot of Latinas are not even counted in that number. Latina Equal Pay Day should not be the only time in which we are addressing this issue, because supporting Latinas is supporting Hispanics, and supporting Hispanics is supporting America. I'm proud to partner with the Financial Times to bring you this panel about income equality and pay gap.
Women experience a gap in representation at the leadership level, a gap that is taken one step deeper when it comes to Latinas. Latinas face something known as a double pay gap, rooted in both gender and ethnicity. For every dollar that a non-Hispanic white man makes, a Latina earns just 57 cents. However, this gap is even wider if considering Latinas not accounted for in the survey measurement. Join this conversation as we discuss how to increase support and leadership representation of the gap within the gap. This discussion will examine the systemic barriers that continue to hold Latina women back and outline tactical ways to close the wage gap. I'm so happy and grateful to be here with all of you today. So today in the US workforce, Hispanic women face a pay gap that has barely moved in the last 3 decades. Latinas are paid just 57 cents for every dollar that white non-Hispanic men make. How does this pay gap affect women and their families? And how does this impact society overall? Let's start with Carol.
Jennifer, thank you so much. And to my esteemed panelists, it's an honor to be here, sitting here with you today and having this conversation. So one, I'll tell you, the really sad part of this, and I think as I reflect on my own personal history, I read an article from leanin.org that said from the age of 16, Latinas are paid less than their white boys that are the same age. What that means for me as I reflect back on working with my mother in the child care center is that I kind of got used to being grateful for whatever kind of pay that I had. And that actually extended into my adulthood, if I'm honest about it, feeling that, well, I should be grateful that I at least have a job. I should be grateful that I am in this role, because there's not a lot of people, other Latinas like me that are in the role. And I think that as Latinas, there's some cultural implications here. Obviously, what does this mean to families? Well, with the Latina being, just like my mother out there in the workforce, earning money for the family, boy, she was working twice as hard, 3 times as hard to earn a single dollar. And it just meant that mom was away from home a lot more. It meant that basic needs like electricity and food were harder to meet. In fact, we see studies today that say that Latinas that are in that ALICE pay band are actually need 14 months worth of income to just sustain themselves for 12 months. We don't have to be economists to realize that that just doesn't work. The math does not work. So I would tell you there's a tremendous impact, both internally within the family and externally, as Latinas are, not earning as much as their male counterparts.
That's a phrase that'll stay with me. The math does not work. Anna, I see you nodding your head.
I am. I just want to build on that. I've had opportunities to offer jobs to 2 individuals of opposing genders, and the offers have come from HR with a bias. Same competency, same job, same opportunity, both recent graduates, so equivalent individuals. And one offer comes in $2,000 to begin, higher than the other, and that gender disparity. And I started doing the math, and that is a significant difference from the beginning to the continuing of the career. And then I would also build on the fact that, Latina women like Carol said, do find a way of making the money. What they don't have the luxury is on growing it, right? Because they do end up having multiple roles to balance that sheet and make sure they provide. But the wealth accumulation, the wealth inheritance, the next generation wealth gathering that happens is systemically challenged because that 50% differential is really the non-operational income that's coming to the household. And then it impacts education, impacts health, impacts everything else that a Latina woman needs to do. And yet they're delivering double the work for half of the money. So to me, those are really challenging stats to stay true to.
So it's pretty much a vicious cycle. Olga, would love to get your thoughts here about how this impacts society overall and how do we reconcile this?
Well, I think, number one, I think I do agree, obviously, with what Anna and Carol said. I just heard them, and I heard a lot of it coming from their personal stories. My personal story, I know now way better than I did back then. But the truth of the matter is, part of where they started is where I started as well. And it's not until you actually sit and actually reflect and in terms of what's happening to you. I think like my moment of really being awake to this was back in my 20s when I had my first job, real full-time job, and I was overseeing two employees, and anyway, I realized that at least for my the white male counterpart that I was overseeing, that I was supervising, he was making more than I was even after I trained him. And so that was where I just thought to myself, well, I either take this or I stand up for myself. And what that did was that I stood up for myself, right? And I was nervous. I didn't know what to do. I didn't feel that anybody had my back, but I did do it because I felt that I owed it to myself. Some kind of way I thought that. And so I ended up leaving that position and going on. But what that does, I think, for society is that, I could have been better at that job. I could have continued to grow within that position. My talent could have been further developed. But because of things like that, society, maybe in that, it was just me. And I know it's one person, but when you start adding all the one persons, right, that this is happening to across the nation, that's something that a society is not going to get the full potential of that talent. And that's something that we really need to look at, because it's not just one individual that's being done to, it's the whole, it's for me, the Latina population, right? We're talking about them today and myself. So I'd like to pose that as let's think about what we're doing. It's not just one person, it's for a whole.
Well, you advocated for yourself in that situation, but you're also advocating for other women as well. Maria, your thoughts. Again, these numbers, Latinas are paid just 57 cents for every dollar that white non-Hispanic men make. How does this pay gap affect women and their families?
Well, building back, on what everybody said, and thank you, Jennifer, for the question. It is very impressive. And to me, being a Latina, and of course, we are all smart. Talent doesn't have gender or any ethnicity. To me, it's all about knowledge. And of course, we perform, and we're multitask women, because we Latinas, we are the parents of our parents, the parents of our children, and the household, and many of the women out there, they are the actually household for their own family. And that is very bad. It's contributing to more poverty for our Latino community, women in general. And so being a business owner, I put the policy up front. We promote talent, we promote women, and we pay equal pay. We don't take side of gender. We take the knowledge and the position, what is the position for somebody that will deliver what we're looking for. So for me, that is a key priority, because being a Latina who has taken the chance to go in business by myself at a young age and succeed, I feel that we can be a mentor, we can be an example. And I have two girls, and they have learned that they're valued, they have something to give back, and they are now working for corporations, and they know what they're worth. So they learn how to negotiate themselves their salaries, because they know what they're doing, and they've been trained. So it's important for us to show more Latinas out there to to learn to negotiate and to get what's value, because they have value, they have something to contribute. So that's the only way that we can change this it's a mega problem. Is basically not only hurting ourselves as a Latina, but the entire financial situation within a country. So for me, it's building back to teaching these Latinas to value themselves, to think equally, to think that they're smart, to think that they have something to give back, and they're not any different from another male counterpart or other gender.
Olga, you touched upon this about the workplace. What other barriers do Latinas face in the workforce? I mean, how might these be unique from other demographics?
I think we think about just culturally who we are, just knowing who we are. We're grateful for the opportunity. We tend to, maybe because we're grateful, we don't negotiate the salary that we should be getting. So there's that whole spiraling effect, right, into future generations, losing, up to $1 million, whatever it is, that maybe somebody else did make because they took the right steps and they negotiated. I would say that other barriers probably results also because we don't have a whole lot of mentors, champions within these organizations. No one really has our back unless we have maybe. There are companies, however, right now that understand, like, okay, look, I understand that I may not have the right resources in place at my firm, but you know what? I'm going to make a difference. I'm still going to be able to bring in those right resources that can help my Latina population, my workforce, to be put on a pathway that can result in their career leadership development, their promotion, their ascendance. Well, obviously, pay. More pay, right? And I think that what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are cognizant of that, right? That sometimes employers don't have the resources that they need, but it doesn't mean that they don't have access to it. That can make a big difference. Also understanding that some of the other barriers would be something like flexibility in the hours, right? That Latinas need. Also understanding that Latinas, we do it with love, but we are also burdened and also responsible for taking care of the children, our retiring parents, los tíos, right? Also the grandparents, and that it doesn't matter that, like, all of us here have all our careers, what we're doing, we're still responsible, and it doesn't matter that you don't live in the same state that your parents are or whoever it is. You're still responsible. It follows you. That responsibility follows you to wherever you're at. So I think that, number one, employers really need to give us more credit for what we do, and understand that we are incredibly intelligent women that are really running not just our own professional life, personal life, but also completely affecting and influencing the lives of other homes that the employer doesn't even know about.
I feel like we're in a really big movement right now, because we're not only seeing the great resignation taking hold, but also the great renewal of women. Women are really reassessing what they want, and if they don't get it, they're leaving. I would love to get Anna's take on this, because you work for a large corporation, Edelman. What barriers do Latinas face in the workforce?
I think it's really an interesting situation, because so many Latinas are small business owners, right? Like Maria, and they create their own ecosystem and they create their own path for growth. And in that ecosystem and path for growth, they can ensure that the value system is retained, that values and valued are all integrated. When you come to be a corporate first, there are significant challenges that come with that. The ecosystem, the being at the table and being quiet, because that's the way most Latina women have been brought up, to be present and quietly make a difference, which is not the way to succeed in corporate America. So I think there's some very interesting inflection points that most Latinas don't get coached on, they don't get sponsored on, and they end up being very mission centric and not self-fulfilling, advocating centric. And then, as Olga mentioned, those influencing circles. Who influences on your behalf? How do they influence? What's your core competency? How do you really maximize what your value is and your secret sauce, your superpower, whichever one to say it? It's almost always that you're Latino, right? It's almost always that you have your mission, you believe in the company mission, you believe in your leader, you believe in making a tangible difference that is not just about you, it's about the collective we. So again, I think that we need more Latinas in corporate America. We have great Latinas in small business, and God bless, más de las María any day. But that we need more Latinas to go through the protocol of being corporate and understand and champion missions and Latinos and Latinas so they can succeed is really critical, important.
So also having a seat at the table.
That absolutely. And this is coming from a first generation college, first corporate, first bilingual. It is hard. It is not easy, but having someone that really helps you through the protocol can make you excel instead of contract and just go to small business.
So Maria, I'm gonna hand this next question to you because you do have a seat at the table. Why is it important for Latina women to not only have a presence there, but to also be heard and listened to?
Wow, that's a wonderful question. I mean, it's not only, I mean, for me, to have the seat at the table is so important, but also to be heard. And it's extremely important because we are that role model for the young generation. I mean, it's important for us to really set the path, like Miss Anna was saying. I mean, it's so important, for me to be the example and also to become a role model for the other Latinitas that are going to school. I mean, it's so important for them to learn that if I did it, they can do it too as well. But most important is so critical for us when we have a seat at the table to really bring back, I mean, like really walk the talk and support and mentor, and not only mentor, but also sponsor these other Latinas out there, because there's so many smart women out there, and they do have the talent, they have the capacity, but they don't have someone. Because many times I heard so many times, how important it is to really pull them up and help them. Because if we don't do that, then who's going to do it? And if we don't do it now, then when? So I think it's so important for us to pull up and give ourselves strength and make things better for the other Latinitas.
Can I add just a couple of points here, please,
I was going to
Jennifer?
come on you, Carol, because
Oh,
I
good. I felt it.
want to hear what Carol has to
I'll tell
say.
you, what I hear from Ana and what I've heard from Olga and what I hear from Maria really speaks to my heart. We have this assumption that if we give somebody a seat at the table, that they will take it and they will speak. I have a friend who was the first EVP of Walmart who says she took a seat. She saw a table in this huge, she's been invited to this huge executive meeting. It was her first one. And she saw the front table and she thought, oh, I don't deserve to be there. She's the EVP of Fortune 1. Oh, I don't deserve to be there. One of her friends saw her hesitating and said, hey, you take your seat at that table and you lift your voice and share your opinion at that table. The reality is, culturally speaking, like Olga was saying, we're a humble people. We don't like to brag about ourselves. We work really hard because we think that somebody's eventually going to notice how hard we're working and they're going to lift us up. And the reality is that that doesn't happen. Each of us as Latinas, I guarantee you, every single woman on this panel raised their hand, lifted their voice, articulated their value proposition to say, hey, I'm going to take that seat at the table and I have something to say. I have a unique perspective. I have a different idea. I've got a question. But if we don't empower Latinas within our own organizations and companies to have that environment, or if we don't foster that culture that invites people to do that, ask them to share their opinions, then we've really missed it all, right? And I think to Maria's point, that's how we sponsor the next generation. We are the role models for them. So therefore, it is implied that we have tremendous responsibility to act and advocate and stretch and pull. You know, we take a coach's role when we sponsor people. We put them into uncomfortable positions. We give them honest feedback, even when it can be hurtful and uncomfortable. But we have tremendous responsibility, each of us, whether we're serving as mentors or allies, Jennifer, or we're serving as role models for the Latinas behind me. That little picture right there, and that one up there is my 5-year-old daughter. When I was promoted into this new role, my sweetheart said, hey, did you just say you're the president of CEOs? And I said, yes, Mija, I did say I'm the president of CEOs. I'm going to cry now. My sweetness said, yay, mommy's the president of CEOs. Now I'm going to be the president of CEOs. That's what we have to do. We've got to make the hard decisions. We've got to put ourselves out there because they're watching, whether they're 5-year-olds or they're 14-year-old boys like my sons.
It's very powerful.
I love that, Carol. I have to jump in. My child made my silence equals death sign. You see it behind me. Because all of us have a voice. And the question is, you know, who allows you to bring your voice forward? And sometimes, you know, this notion of calladita te ves más bonita, like you look prettier when you're quiet, is so counterintuitive to what we can bring to the equation. And so I tend to, Carol, for many years, I sat in the back and I was not taking my seat. And then I realized that by not doing that, I was preventing everybody else that was behind me of getting that seat. So now I open the seat, make sure someone sits down, and I stand there. And I make sure that person is successful until that seat is 2, 3, or 4. And so that needs to also happen with fiscal acumen, right? That needs to happen with transparency in terms of this is what I bring forward. And Latinas have a beautiful, you know, triathlete effect. They conquer the mission, they bring people upstream, and they make sure that there is fun and drama, right? So it's a familiar environment. So if you do those 3 things, you're the type of leader that someone's going to follow and no one's really going to resign to. They will actually lean into more. So I think that the Latina employee is hugely undervalued or hugely valued. There's no in between.
So, Anna, who are the key stakeholders that can become allies in this effort?
Yeah, so the key stakeholders, Latinas tend to think that their club is the key stakeholder group. And that's the problem. Like we stay in our coffee club, mi comadres. And it's the opposite of that. Those people you need because you need to survive with your kids or your work streams or whatever it is that you're doing. It's 3 steps up. It's 3 steps out. It's in the industry. It's all those other people that that inspire you. Those are the people that you need to tap. Those are the people that you need to lever to be able to make sure that your seat has the fluidity that it needs to be able to grow.
I believe that several of you have talked about advocacy and having sponsors. Olga, I would love for you to chime in about the resources that are available for Latino women. Your story about advocating for yourself, it really resonates because I think we've all done it on our own. Fortunately, I went out of my way to find 4 board of directors. I call them board of directors because they're my mentors. And I have 2 women and 2 men because we need men as our allies also. But I would love to get your thoughts, Olga, on the resources available for Latino women, because all of you have said that we all have to support each other. What does that mean, Olga, in terms of the resources that are out there?
Well, to Anna's point and yours, Jennifer, I also did the same thing. I mean, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and going out into, for me, into the financial industry. There's not a whole lot of Latinas there, but I do find an occasional Latina, and I get so excited. I really do. And so what I've noticed is, I really have to rely more. Most recently, I actually was accepted into the Chicago Finance Exchange, and that's a group of very notable women in the Chicagoland area, and that have really are just supremely successful. So to have been admitted into that club for me was, it's life-changing for me, because I know I'm going to learn so much from them, and that's why I'm there. And do they look like me? No, but you know what? They have a lot of the same goals, right, that I do, and that's really what brings us together. So I'm always about going into the rooms. That's just one example, but I'm always about going into the rooms with people that don't look like me. And you'll be amazed how many people do want to help you out and how much you can learn about other folks. Now, when that is not the case, that's not happening for you, however, maybe where you're working, then there are other resources, for example, to get you at least started in that direction, or to at least help you explore, right? So one of the things would be like the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement. I am the national board chair for it, very proud. And I've been with ASE since 30 years back, since I was in high school. I was not even an adult yet. Now I'm plenty an adult age. But what I wanted to tell you is, it's important to be able to make yourself look. I just happened to cross paths with them, right? Turns out that one of the ASE board members was a recruiter for the University of Illinois at Chicago. We crossed paths. The rest is history. Now I'm the national board chair. What? I wouldn't have ever thought that in my life. But what I did find out was that when you are working with a network, and to your point, somebody said it earlier, they can't always be, Latina women, right? No las comadres, right, Ana? But it's more about, what is that next circle that you need? And then the following, right? The reach circles. And the reason why you need those is because they're going to bring you other opportunities, other resources. ASE, for example, they bring the comadres together. We have Mujeres de ASE, the leadership development program that helps a lot of employers get their Latinas on a pathway to, help develop their career, help them get promoted. A lot of Latinas that go to that program, by the way, recommended 100% of the time. 80% of them end up getting a pay raise within the first year. 70% end up getting a promotion. So it works, right? So that's a resource for you to help you where you're at. But it also, what it does is it gives you a bigger network. certainly there are so many partners, for example, to ASE. And if you start thinking about who they are, a lot of them are corporations, right? And a lot of them have individuals that are very much, they're very much committed to seeing Latinas grow, the Latino community grow within the ranks of corporations. So you'll find them there, right? And again, sometimes they may look like you, and a lot of times they won't look like you, but it's okay. That's the way it's supposed to work. So those kinds of resources are available, but it's about, it's not just about raising up your hand. It's about, taking action, right? Moving forward.
Right.
Earlier today, somebody said, well, opportunities, opportunities are there and you got to go through them. But sometimes you're like thinking somebody's going to notice me. No. Look, I read something today on LinkedIn and I was just laughing for a while, but I got to share this with you. And it's out there somewhere. I'm not going to say exactly what it said because it would not be appropriate, but it said something to the effect of, okay, if you see opportunity, don't knock on its door. You kick that door in, and you introduce yourself. So that was really, and that's really the way it's supposed to be for Latinas. And I know that that's not comfortable, but remember, be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Olga, I want to build on that because I know in my experience, whenever I spend time going for those opportunities or considering them, I thought it was selfish and that I was then not spending enough time with my 3 kids or my husband. And I realized that those are elevating opportunities for my family. That is really like I'm the conduit to it. That it's not about me, but it ends up being about learning something completely different that then I can bring home and my kids can learn and my husband can learn, and it's going to accelerate. Instead of detracting, it's actually an amplifier. And I think that code, if I would have figured that out earlier, I would have accelerated much faster than doing it after my kids were in middle school and I had like a little bit of, grounding. So I just encourage everyone, try to learn something new once a month. Give yourself once a month my kids call a marshmallow because I'm kind of that person, but a marshmallow, un dulce, that's really going to expand your point of view, and it's going to increase your ability to do more and to be more.
I wanted to ask Carol, how can companies create more equitable workplaces for Latinas and tap into this pool of talent? We talk a lot about representation and having a seat at the table. I, for one, think that having a diverse and inclusive, very inclusive workplace makes for a profitable workplace. So, Carol, enlighten us. How can companies create more equitable workplaces for Latinas?
Right. Well, Jennifer, I'll tell you first that your hunch is correct. McKinsey and Associates did an amazing study called Why Diversity Matters that shows you when you have executives, diverse executives, you outperform non-diverse organizations by 40+%. I think the challenge we have had in kind of carrying forth the mantle that is diversity and inclusion. And I say that because when I told my mother-in-law that I was going to be doing diversity and inclusion, she said, honey, I've been doing that for 20 years. What's different now? Well, I would tell you that there are a lot of changes, societal changes that occurred in 2020 that really have helped this diversity and inclusion momentum grow. In my experience consulting with Fortune 300 companies on diversity and inclusion and helping them build roadmaps to building these diverse and inclusive cultures, I will tell you that it starts with buy-in, and it starts with buy-in at all levels. Absolutely at the top. Absolutely at the top. The C-suite has to understand the business case for why diversity and inclusion matters. But it also comes from the bottom. It comes from people within the organization that say, hey, I expect more, and I want to have a seat at the table, and I want to share my voice at the table. Through my work with Serve to Perform, I was able to consult with companies and help them understand the value of building an ecosystem that empowers high performance built on the power of inclusion. So for organizations, you have to, I mean, we're all diverse. Organizations are diverse. I mean, it's just now a numbers thing. So lots of Latinos out there, lots of African Americans, lots of Samoans. I mean, we can just keep going and going. The population, the minorities are almost the majority here in the United States. So organizations are diverse, but they don't necessarily know what to do with that diversity. But when we work, or when I work with organizations, I teach them how to put in place these programs. Systemically, there's a lot of changes that have to happen within the talent life cycle. We have to make sure that bias is mitigated in the recruiting efforts, in selection, in interviews, in promotion. I mean, we could go on in that life cycle. There are organizations today that still have different interviews for different people in, you know, really kind of non-standard practices. I teach them how to put in place those programs so that all of that is mitigated, but also developing the leaders within the organization to become inclusive leaders that foster an environment where diversity of thought and diversity demographically is welcome, and it is sought after, and it is catalyzed into innovation. There's a strong business case for diversity and inclusion, lots and lots of data, but you've got to start with the organizations themselves and building those allies. I call them raving fans. There are people who are saying wonderful things about diversity and inclusion, about their cultures, even when you're not standing in front of them.
Thank you so much for that, Carol. I know that we're coming up at the hour and we're wrapping things up. I wanted to ask each of you, what advice would you give a Latina entering the workforce? Let's start with Maria.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Well, the advice I would give to Latina entering into the workforce is to first and foremost believe in themselves. Also, look exactly, I mean, the direction that she wants to go and hit that goal. Never take a no for an answer. It's always important to just, like you said, just push that door and get it open. I mean, for example, in my case, there were so many things that can be said right now, but I know time is not enough. I went into the male-dominated industry. I'm the first Latina in the waste management industry. Thank you. And I went to these board meetings where just only male were in these meetings, and I was, disrespected many times. And I never let that go into diminish me. That made me much stronger and make more out of it. So that's what I would tell Latinas, and not to learn to associate with not just the friends, but people that know more. It's been one of my key, pieces for my success is associating with mentors, people that are knowledgeable, that they have not just the female genders, but also male genders. And that's another thing that is important also to bring to these meetings, these corporate, CEOs, males as well, so they can learn and listen to our conversations, because sometimes they don't know what the needs are, or they don't have that capacity, I guess, because they're so busy doing other things. So it is important to network with these individuals. I mean, in my case, I've been appointed to several boards where just male at the table, and now who would have thought that I'm just been appointed to serve and represent small business owners throughout the country with the National Women Business Council. 15 members from the entire country. And it's not about because you have an accent. It's not, don't be afraid of speaking, because talent and education and knowledge, it doesn't have, as I said, gender. It's all about deliver everything that you promise, and make sure that first and foremost, believe in yourself and find something that what is exactly that you want to be doing. Set the eye on the prize, and don't let no one tell you anything different. Because if I did it, anybody can do it as well.
It's so excellent. And as you said, don't let the negativity diminish you.
No.
Let it motivate you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Carol, what advice would you give a Latina entering the workforce?
I love this. I would just add to what Maria has said. One is we must serve the community at large outside of, what we're doing within the organization. And what I mean by that is, as she mentioned, as we heard, expanding our circles, building, I equate that to building a diverse social network. When we are in service to others, though that service tends to be very reciprocal, right? We serve others, they serve us. It feels wonderful. But what we don't truly kind of realize is how much we are learning valuable leadership lessons while that's happening. So outside of getting mentors and outside of having networks, stretch yourself and serve the community so that you can learn more in terms of your own leadership style. You get to see others, you get to emulate those things, you get access to additional sponsors and mentors. I mean, there's so many benefits to really stretching yourself in that way.
Where were all of you during this time? I mean, this is powerful stuff. Olga, what would you tell a Latina entering the workforce?
I would say, we all believe in you. I need you to really think big with whatever you do, because you can do it. And get involved with ASE. I think that there's many more opportunities that await you in there. And it's not just about you showing up. It's about you coming in and introducing yourself. Because I got to tell you, your friends are waiting for you there, maybe business partners, maybe new opportunities, your leadership opportunities are waiting for you.
Wow. And last but not least, Anna, close us out.
Oh my God, I would say your authenticity, your life experience is your bonus. It is not a tax. Maria, Carol, Olga, Jen, you've all talked about how you're perceived as a tax. It's the opposite. And if you find a detractor along the way, take this name down and don't spend any energy there. Spend the energy improving your value, your point of view, your authenticity, because again, you're going to succeed. It is not the why, it's the why not. So bring it. Like, you gone that far, you got in the door, do something with that seat and have the best time of your life. And if it doesn't work, it's not for you. Go move somewhere else.
Thank you so much, Anna, Carol, Olga, Maria. This was an illuminating and powerful conversation. I'm going to say thank you also to Michelle. I'm ready to kick some doors.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Adelante.
Bye.
Thank you.
Well, I hope that session inspired you to take action. Whether you're working in corporate America, you're running HR, you have a community association, we can all take action so that we can bridge the gap, so that Latina Equal Pay Day is a thing of the past, and that every Latina is paid equally and fairly to what we deserve.
At least 111 Texans died as a result of the February 2021 winter storm. This winter storm could be the costliest disaster in Texas history, potentially exceeding the damage from Hurricane Harvey.
Simplemente en estos 4 días vamos a poder ayudar más de 10,000 familias, 10,000 personas que a lo mejor no se pudieron bañar, que a lo mejor no pudieron tomar agua potable, que a lo mejor no pudieron comer y que ahora van a sentir, ¿sabes qué? Yo no estoy solo, mi comunidad está conmigo.
Vamos a hacer una distribución de productos de P&G y algunos alimentos, también otras cosas que nos donó PepsiCo y Barilla.
A lot of people tend to come out here and volunteer, not just to benefit the community, but, to come together.
La Fundación Hispanic Stars se ha encargado de unir a los latinos para ayudar a otros latinos.
Hicimos 1,000 bolsas, entonces en cada bolsa están poniendo 2 semanas de comida.
Hacemos Hispanic Stars para unir a todos los latinos y que tengamos un símbolo, no importa si eres mexicana, colombiana, haz de cuenta, ves eso y dices, tú eres latino, órale, yo también soy latino, ya no tienes que decir nada, lo puedes ver y lo sabes.
Es muy hermoso mirar que entre los hispanos nos ayudemos y que haga este tipo de apoyo.
Me siento contenta por estar recibiendo esta donación. Dios los bendiga y que sigan donando más para la gente que necesita.
Thank you to all our sponsors and collaborators for your support. And special thanks to our founding partners, NRG and P&G, for making our rapid intervention possible.
Thank you, Hispanic Star.
It is now an honor for me to introduce to you one of the giants of corporate America, a giant ally. Yes, Mr. David Gibbs, CEO of Young Brands, who's gonna be here with us talking about the importance of the Latino community and his role as an ally in raising his voice for us.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well and that your experience at this year's Hispanic Leadership Summit has been both informative and inspiring. As a company with a core value of believing in all people, Young Brands is fiercely committed to unlocking opportunities when it comes to leadership and career advancement for underrepresented groups inside our company and in the communities we serve. Here in the U.S., the Hispanic and Latinx communities have a significant impact on our business, both in regards to our workforce and our customer base. In addition, several of our corporate offices are located in regions with large and growing Hispanic and Latinx populations. We also recognize that this community continues to become increasingly influential in business, media, government, culture, and so many other spaces. With all of this in mind, Yum is dedicated to continuing our journey towards progress when it comes to representation, visibility, and leadership within the Hispanic and Latinx communities. From our ongoing work with We Are All Human to being one of the first signatories of the Hispanic Promise, to our efforts behind creating pathways for more underrepresented people to enter into franchising through Yum's Center for Global Franchise Excellence, we are invested in this community. And as we've listened and learned over the years, it's become clear that allyship is essential. I am deeply humbled to serve as an ally to this community. And for the other allies out there, it's important that we continue to show up every day for underrepresented groups. Use your voice and platforms to increase awareness and understanding. Recognize your blind spots. Speak for the folks who are not in the room or at the table. No action is too small or too large when it comes to being an effective ally. The work of an ally is about compassion and collaboration. And on behalf of Young Brands, we are dedicated to supporting We Are All Humans' unified agenda for progress to advance the Hispanic and Latinx communities towards a brighter 2022 and beyond. As this year's summit closes out, I encourage you all to maintain your energy and the momentum we're building together against the critical initiatives of We Are All Human. I know that next year, when we get together, we'll be able to celebrate great progress towards a more equitable and inclusive workforce. I wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season, and thank you for letting us be part of this amazing work.
2022 will be a year for breakthrough. Yes, we will be able to break through if we put our hands together to break it through. This is our time. It's about to happen. The dam is breaking. Water is leaking. And what is very clear to me is that what really unifies us all is the progress. So we do have an agenda, and it's the agenda of progress, the agenda of upward mobility and social mobility. We have to focus on having our agenda of progress, better health, better jobs, better education, better gender equality, together, unity, community, Latino unity and Latino pride. At the World Human Foundation, we commit to go across the country in 2022 doing regional events so that we can bring the voices together, so that we can advance our agenda of progress by focusing on two main areas. The how, what are the solutions, what are the indicators, what are the pieces that we should be all scaling up, all supporting each other, and the who. Who is doing what so that we can connect with each other, support each other, instead of not knowing who's doing what and duplicating efforts and not understanding what the map is. A map is the key to success, and we will work on mapping it out so that we can connect with each other and understand who is doing what and how do we actually integrate our actions to advance together. We will also commit to producing content and toolkits so that we can have a unifying messaging framework, a unifying data set and unifying communication assets so that we can all be speaking with a single voice, singing from the same song sheet, talking about the Latino power, talking about how Hispanics are positive contributors to the country. And lastly, we commit ourselves to building networks, to connecting each other, to supporting the creation and the improvement and the growth of Hispanic startups all across the country, because we as a community, we have to be more connected than any other community because we care about progress, we care about elevating each other. This is an open invitation for you to take action. There are three main things that we can all do. Number one, let's join forces in creating the most important education campaign so that the 77% of Latinos that do not know of their own contributions to the country go down. We have to change the perception of Latinos by starting educating ourselves. So become activists so that we can get Latinos knowing about their own contributions to the country so that they can feel proud and united. Number two, 76% of Latinos cannot be themselves at the workplace. So please, let's join forces so that we can create more inclusive environments in corporate America for Latinos to be able to be themselves. And the last piece that we can all do is work on our unity. 90% of Hispanics identify as Hispanics, Latino, Latinx, whatever you want to call us, but we do not act as a Latino community. That has to stop. This is the time for Hispanics to shine. America is made of stars. We Hispanics were one of them. I want to thank you all for being part of this Hispanic Leadership Summit 2022.